Welcome to your Health Facts. Today we're diving into some surprising signs that you might not be getting enough oxygen. We all know breathing is like essential, right? But it's wild. Even being a little low on oxygen can really mess with you in ways you wouldn't expect.
You're absolutely right. When most people hear low oxygen, or what we call hypoxemia, they immediately think of some serious illness. But it's actually way more common than that. Think about it, things like sleep problems, or even just being up in the mountains, that can throw your oxygen levels off. And it's not always these big, scary symptoms. Sometimes it's these little things that we just don't notice. And that's what we're going to break down, those early warning signs.
Okay, so let's talk about those signs.
Yeah.
I was surprised to learn that those random headaches you get, especially if they're bad in the morning, could be a sign.
Yeah, that's because our brains are real oxygen hogs. So if they're not getting enough, they basically start to complain. And one way they complain is with tension and pain, which we feel is a headache. So if you're getting those headaches a lot and you can't figure out why, it might be worth looking into your oxygen levels.
That makes sense. What about feeling exhausted all the time? Like even if you get a good night's sleep, you're still dragging. I know I've definitely been there.
Oh yeah, that's a classic sign. You see, our cells need oxygen to make energy, like a car needing fuel, not enough oxygen, and they just can't run properly. And that's why you feel that deep tiredness that even a gallon of coffee can't fix. So if you're always wiped out, even with enough sleep, low oxygen might be the reason.
Speaking of things coffee can't fix, did you know that having weak nails and hair that grows slow can be tied to low oxygen? I never would have guessed that.
It sounds strange, I know, but think about it. Your hair follicles, those tiny things that grow hair, and your nail roots, they need a good blood supply to work right. And if your oxygen is low, that blood supply isn't as strong, which affects how your hair and nails grow.
Okay, now this next one is a little freaky. It's called cyanosis. It's when your skin, like your lips or nails, turns kind of bluish because there's not enough oxygen in your blood.
Yeah, cyanosis is definitely a red flag. It usually means the hypoxemia, that low oxygen, is getting more serious. If you see that happening, you need to get medical help ASAP. No messing around with that one.
So it sounds like paying attention to these subtle signs is super important. I know the research also mentioned things like feeling dizzy, your heart beating really fast, and even being short of breath.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Those are all your body's ways of trying to make up for not having enough oxygen. Like, your heart beats faster to try and push that oxygen-rich blood around quicker. It's working overtime, basically.
And you're saying it can even mess with your thinking, like you can't concentrate or remember things well.
Exactly. Our brains are real divas. They need a lot of attention, especially when it comes to oxygen. They use up about 20% of the oxygen we breathe, so even a little dip, and it can affect how you think, how well you focus, even your memory. So that brain fog you get, don't always blame it on stress, right? It could be your brain's way of saying, hey, I need more oxygen here.
And it's not just athletes, right? Like if you find yourself struggling with everyday stuff like bringing in the groceries or going up the stairs and it feels way harder than it used to, that could be a sign too. It's like your body saying, hey, I need more of that good stuff, that oxygen.
It really can impact every aspect of your life. And
Sure.
you know what's interesting? It's not just the physical stuff. Low oxygen can even mess with your mood, with how you feel emotionally.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. When your brain isn't getting enough oxygen, it kind of freaks out a bit. It goes
Yeah.
into this high alert mode. And that can make you more irritable, more anxious. You might even feel like you're having a panic attack, but it's actually a physical thing, not just in your head.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. So if you're feeling stressed or on edge all the time, it could be your body trying to tell you something's up with your oxygen.
Exactly. And here's another weird one. Weak nails. Hair that's not growing as fast as it used to. That can be linked to low oxygen too.
No way, seriously. I thought that was just like a vitamin thing or something.
Yeah, it can be, but low oxygen plays a role too. Remember how we talked about hair follicles and nail roots needing good blood flow? Well, if you're not getting enough oxygen, that can affect those tiny blood vessels that feed them, and boom, weak nails, slow hair growth.
Okay, so we've talked about the signs, but what actually causes low oxygen levels in the first place?
Well, there are a bunch of things. Sometimes it's a problem with your lungs, like if you have asthma or COPD. Those conditions make it harder for your lungs to do their job, which is to grab oxygen from the air.
Right, that makes sense. And I imagine heart problems could cause it too,
You
right?
got it. If your heart isn't pumping blood efficiently, that oxygen-rich blood can't get to where it needs to go.
What about things like, I don't know, being up in the mountains where the air is thinner? Does that matter?
It absolutely does. Higher altitude, less oxygen in the air. And then there's sleep apnea, where you stop breathing for a few seconds while you're asleep. That obviously messes with your oxygen intake.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. So it sounds like there are a lot of different culprits. What should someone do if they think they might have low oxygen levels?
The first thing, always talk to your doctor. They can run some tests to check your blood oxygen levels. There's a simple test called a pulse oximeter. It just clips on your finger.
Okay, so your doctor can figure out what's going on, but are there things people can do on their own to help?
Absolutely. There are some simple things that can make a big difference. Deep breathing exercises, for example. When you take those nice, slow breaths, you're basically training your lungs to work better, to take in more oxygen.
I've heard about that, but I'm always like, am I doing it right?
It's pretty easy, actually. Breathe in slowly through your nose, filling up your belly like a balloon. Hold it for a second or two, then exhale slowly through your mouth. Do that a few times a day, and you'll be surprised how much better you feel.
Okay, so deep breathing. What else?
Exercise. When you get your heart pumping, it strengthens your heart and lungs, which means they can deliver oxygen more efficiently. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just get moving, walk, jog, dance, whatever you enjoy.
Right, makes sense. And I'm guessing fresh air is good too.
You bet. Open those windows, let the fresh air circulate. And hey, if you want to go the extra mile, get some plants. Some plants are like little air purifiers.
I love that idea. So fresh air, plants, and I guess quitting smoking is a no-brainer, right?
Definitely.
That-
Smoking is like the worst thing you can do to your lungs. It damages them, making it harder to absorb oxygen. Plus all those other nasty chemicals, yuck.
Yeah, no thanks. What about food? Does diet play a role in oxygen levels?
Absolutely. Iron is a key nutrient because it helps your blood carry oxygen. So load up on those iron-rich foods like lean meats, lentils, spinach, all that good stuff.
Okay, so iron for the blood. And I imagine fruits and veggies are important too, right?
You know it. Fruits and veggies are packed with antioxidants and all sorts of good stuff that helps your body function at its best.
So we're talking deep breathing, exercise, fresh air, good food. What about water?
Oh, water is essential. It helps your blood flow smoothly, which means that oxygen can get to your tissues more easily. Stay hydrated, my friend.
Got it. Any other tips? This is all great stuff.
Well, here's one you might not expect. Posture. You know how your mom always told you to sit up straight? She was on to something. Good posture helps your lungs expand fully so you can take in more oxygen.
Wow, I never realized that. So posture matters too. All of this is really helpful advice, but it's important to remember that it's not a substitute for seeing a doctor, right? Especially if you think you might have a serious health issue.
Absolutely. These tips are great for overall health and well-being, but if you're experiencing those more serious symptoms we talked about, like shortness of breath or that bluish tint to your skin, don't mess around. Get to a doctor right away.
Right, because those could be signs of a bigger problem that needs medical attention.
Exactly. It's always better to be safe than sorry. So to recap, low oxygen can show up in all sorts of sneaky ways, from headaches and fatigue to those more serious things like cyanosis.
And the good news is, there are things we can do to help our bodies get the oxygen they need.
Exactly. Deep breathing, exercise, fresh air, good food, enough water, even just sitting up straight. It all adds up.
It's amazing how much our everyday choices can impact something as vital as oxygen. Well, this has been incredibly informative. I've learned so much about how important oxygen is and all the subtle ways our bodies try to tell us when we're not getting enough.
I'm glad you found it helpful. It's one of those things we often take for granted until something goes wrong. So hopefully this deep dive has given everyone some food for thought and maybe even inspired some positive changes.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more about boosting your health and well-being, head over to yourhealthfacts.com. You'll find tons of great information there. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.